Oh, not me, I can't play it anymore. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Kishore Kishori ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai, Gaunitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are continuing the chapter, the killing of Dinakasura, the arse demon, and we are doing text 14, so it's Canto 10, Chapter 15, text 14. It's got a very short purport, so we'll chant responsibly. Kvachit krita parishrantam Gopot sango paparhanam Svayam Vishramayati Aryam Pada Sambhahana Dibihi Pachit Krita Parishrantam. It's difficult. Gopo Sango Parhanam Svayam Vishramayati Aryam Pada Sambhahana Dibihi Kvachit Krita Parishrantam Gopo Sango Paraparhanam Svayam Vishramayati Aryam Pada Sambhahana Dibihi. Please chant. Kvachit Krita Parishrantam Gopo Sango Papaharanam Svayam Vishramayati Aryam Pada Sambhahana Dibihi. Kvachit Krita Parishrantam Gopo Sango Paparhanam Svayam Vishramyati Aryam Pada Sambhahana Dibihi. Tam Da Parishrantam Gopo Sango Papaharanam Svayam Vishramyati Aryam Pada Sambhahana Dibihi. And the word for word, kvachit, sometimes. Krida, by playing. Parishrantam, fatigued Gopa, of a cowherd boy. Utsanga, the lap. Upabarhanam, using as his pillow. Swayam, personally. Vishramayati, relieves him from his fatigue. Aryam, his elder brother. Padasambhahana adibihi, by massaging his feet and offering other services. So here's the translation for text 14. When his elder brother, fatigued from playing, would lie down with his head upon the lap of a cowherd boy, Lord Krishna would help him relax by personally massaging his feet and offering other services. And the purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The word Padavadhanitibihi indicates that Lord Krishna would massage Balaram's feet, fan him, and bring him river water to drink. That's the purport. Very short. All right. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagrigjatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saham Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitam Sha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhudina Bando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapsa Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpataribhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimataram Padaswami Iti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimata Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, this is a continuation of Krishna's very blissful cow-herding pastimes. Srila Kavi Karnapura, in Ananda Vrindavan Shampu, he writes that the demigods, because they're observing these pastimes, they actually felt great satisfaction as they flew in the sky above Vrindavan. So watching Krishna's blissful cow-herding pastimes, in particular, Srila Kavi Karnapura, he notes that the happiness of Krishna and Balaram increased moment after moment as they played with their friends. So that's the reason it's called blissful. It's increasing happiness. Each moment there's greater happiness and greater happiness and greater happiness, which is so difficult to comprehend because generally one thinks of happiness as one state. And in the concept of happiness and being in the form of bliss, spiritual bliss, it's actually increasing in volume. so to speak. So expanding. It's not a static one state. Now, there's a description of the interaction between Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram. And I'm going to read a little bit because there's a point that leads up to this point of Krishna and Balaram being in this particular scenario where Lord Balaram is fatigued and Krishna is massaging his lotus feet. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit to lead up to it. So I'm reading a description. One day, everyone listened to Lord Krishna narrate the glories of Vrindavan's trees, creepers, bees, deer, and animals to his elder brother, Balaram. Due to the hot sun, drops of perspiration appeared on the foreheads of Krishna and Balaram. To relieve their exhaustion, they rested in the shade of some thick foliage. The cowherd boys, while laughing and speaking sweetly, removed the fatigue of Krishna and Balaram by offering various items. These personal services increased their affection for Krishna more and more. So, one doesn't usually think that a narration causes tiredness, but it's preceded by various other activities that are in the form of play, and there is the sun that's beating down. So we read earlier in the Srimad Bhagavatam something of this narration. So I'm going to draw from various sources because it's just to give some sense of what is being communicated by Lord Krishna to Lord Balaram. So there was given earlier on in the Srimad Bhagavatam something of the narration of the glories of Vrindavan's trees. And one may recall a little bit the class of Atmarama Prabhu, who's a resident of Vrindavan, and he touched a little bit on the glories of Vrindavan's trees. So this is what Lord Krishna tells Lord Balaram. So here's an example where there's a section of the narration that Krishna's espousing to Lord Balaram. So he's talking to Lord Balaram. These trees are bowing their heads at your lotus feet, which are worshipable by the immortal demigods. These trees are offering you their fruits and flowers to eradicate the dark ignorance that has caused their birth as trees. So this was in the 3rd verse, we had covered that. And here's another example of Lord Krishna speaking to Balaram regarding something of the glories of Vrindavan's residents, because that's the focus of Krishna. He's glorifying the residents. So the trees are residents of Vrindavan. So he says, this is in relation to the bees. These bees must all have been great sages and most elevated devotees of yours, for they are worshipping you by following you along the path and chanting your glories, which are themselves a holy place for the entire world. Though you have disguised yourself within this forest, O sinless one, they refuse to abandon you, their worshipable Lord. So 2 examples of this narration that Krishna's espousing to Lord Balaram, and the whole focus is a glorification of the trees and a glorification of the bees. But it's also he's acknowledging that their glory lies in the fact that they actually are worshipping Lord Balaram. So he's extending that worship that's coming to him as Lord Krishna to his brother Lord Balaram. And he's speaking to Lord Balaram, pointing out the glories of these residents, and their glory being in their worship of Lord Balaram. So it's the nature of Krishna. He's always ready to glorify his devotees. So not only is he all in one package glorifying the residents of Vrindavan, he's also glorifying his elder brother, all in one go. So that's one of the qualities of Krishna, is extremely clever. So this narration of the glories of the trees of Vrindavan by Lord Krishna was to speak about their glorious great devotees. So Lord Krishna makes an interpretation of their movement, because he says, the trees holding gifts of fruit and flowers on their heads are bowing down to your lotus feet with devotion. So it's very personalized. It's not an inanimate object. Oh, the trees have a lot of fruit. It's not like that. He's personalizing. They're actually carrying on their heads their fruits and flowers, and then they're bowing down to offer those same fruits and flowers to Lord Balaram. And Lord Krishna gives a reason for this action on the part of the trees. And this is the reason he gives for these elevated, extraordinary devotees, the trees of Vrindavan. He says they bow down to purify themselves of their offenses, which cause them to take birth as trees. Now, as for the narration to Lord Balaram of the bees, Lord Krishna goes through a line of reasoning also to reach a conclusion. So he says, these bees are following you here and there because they are attracted to the fragrance of your body. When you go to secret places for your intimate pastimes, where even your confidential associates cannot go, these bees cannot give you up but keep following you. Although they follow you in secluded places, you do not become offended by them. Therefore, they must be your intimate devotees. So again, very personalized, conscious entities. So Krishna's line of reasoning to show how they're extremely great devotees. Lord Balaram is accepting of them pursuing him, and at the same time, he permits them to follow him even when he goes into the groves of Vrindavan, which are considered intimate places. There's a very nice description of these groves that they made of kalpa vriksha trees. There's even a breakdown, and this is from Srila Rupa Goswami. I'll reference him a little bit later on. But he describes that originally in Vrindavan there's just one kalpa vriksha tree, but then because of the other trees were associating with that kalpa vriksha tree, they also became kalpa vriksha trees. And so they actually form like little enclosures that when you read the description, they're described almost as kind of mini palaces in the forest, because the flowers are flowing down in a certain way, the height is a certain height, so everything is particularly arranged that it's almost like an enclosure within the forest. So these bees actually follow Lord Balaram into such an enclosure. Now, apart from these narrations to Lord Balaram regarding the glories of the residents of Vrindavan, because that's what this verse is touching on, Lord Krishna also sometimes comforts Lord Balaram by personally massaging his feet and offering other services. That's the description in this verse. Now, there's a reason for coming to this point of tiredness, and that description is that the cows taken care of by Krishna, so I'm looking a little at the whole scene, they had different names, and Krishna would call them with love. And after hearing Krishna calling them, the cows would immediately respond by mooing, and the boys would enjoy this exchange to their heart's content. So just witnessing this aroused great love on the part of the cowherd boys. In our Krsnarcana farm, all the cows have names, and it's a very similar thing. When they are summoned, they respond to their names. So it's a very loving thing, because it's cow is a huge creature actually, and that they're responsive to their names and loving there's something very beautiful about it. So the cowherd boys are witnessing this kind of exchange between Krishna and his many cows. And this particular point is highlighted by Srila Prabhupada in Krishna book. Then what would follow, they would imitate the sound, other sounds, when Lord Balaram became tired of playing, he lay down using the lap of one of his cowherd friends. So the particular sounds that they also imitated was of the birds, and we heard that. So there's a lot of concentration. You notice that everything in these pastimes is very precise. There's attention to sounds, and then there's the cowherd boys, Krishna and Balaram, repeating those sounds. It's the attention to the cows, the close connection, the responses of the cows between the cowherd boys, Krishna and Balaram. Now, especially they were imitating the sounds of the peacocks, the cuckoos, and the bharadvajas. I do not know what kind of bird that is, but presumably specific to Vrindavan. And sometimes they also would, so again, it's observation. They've seen some of the weaker animals, so I guess there might even be, I suppose, rabbits that are very small creatures and generally look very fearful. They would flee as they heard the sound of tigers and lions. And then Krishna and Balaram would imitate those little animals that are fleeing in fear, like they would also pretend to have fear, it said mock fear, and they would also run away, sort of as though they were running from the sound of the tigers and the lions. So when they felt some fatigue, they would sit down, and Lord Balaram at that point would put his head on the lap of one of the boys just to take rest. And Krishna would immediately come and begin massaging the legs of Lord Balaram. So, when one thinks about it, the activities are very focused, and one of the things that would always surprise me through devotional life personally was that the performance of some service that requires intense concentration, usually there's some tiredness. And early in one's devotional life, one may find that one actually needs to rest quite a bit, because it is a very focused, concentrated activity performing service. So even Krishna and Balaram, they're in play, but there's service being performed in some sense, because there's interaction with each other. And the interaction is very intelligent interaction. I mean, this kind of observation and perfect imitation of the sounds of other creatures, or the emotions of other creatures, it requires a good amount of observation. And of course, no doubt they did it very perfectly, because we hear that the responses were always of great laughter, particularly early in one of the earlier verses. Krishna moving his arms like a peacock whirs his feathers it produced a lot of laughter. So it means the imitation is very perfect. So that requires observation to be able to do that perfectly and translate it in a way that is exact. So there was tiredness after such activity. So it's not mindless playing, it's very thoughtful, observant, careful, I think interactions, that would be the word. So Lord Balaram would lie down using the lap of a cowherd boy as his pillow, this Upatarhana. So the purpose was being served. It's a soft surface on which to rest on, the thighs of the fellow cowherd boys. So feeling refreshed, Krishna and Balaram ignored the hot sun and played again with the cowherd boys, laughing gleefully in great delight. So you get the mood. And overcome with merriment, and this is given by Srila Kavikana Purna, overcome with merriment, they followed the cows into the forest. Everyone relished a festive mood. These are the words of Srila Kavikana Purna. Everyone relished a festive mood, bathing in the natural aura of Krishna's sweet love. So there's an overriding atmosphere that's containing all these activities, and it's actually Krishna's love. So the whole environment is saturated with Krishna's love, described as the natural aura of Krishna. So generally auras are considered, I think, to go 3 feet from one's body, like every human has an aura, so it's the psychic energy around one. So in Krishna's case, that aura extended that it filled the whole of Vrindavan. So everything is, that aura is the kind of container for this festive mood, this atmosphere that's allowing for this gleeful merriment on the part of the cowherd boys and Balaram. So thus relishing of a festive mood is described, and there's also a part played by these residents. I'm going to give a description of the part that's played by the trees. And here's from Vraja Riti Chintamani. This is Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writing. So he says, everywhere in Vrindavan and on the Yamuna's shores are trees that are like the Lord's incarnation. They give the gift of pure love, and that makes one remember the Lord, making he who is the moon of Vraja suddenly arise within the heart. So something of the part played even by the residents in adding to the whole mood. So what one might think is not a highly conscious entity is not the case for the trees of Vrindavan, because their presence is allowing one to remember Krishna, because so powerful is their own love for Krishna that just by being in their presence, it allows Krishna to arise within one's own heart. So extremely extraordinary, their contribution to everything. So it means that the trees are serving as an impetus towards a devotee's engagement in transcendental loving service. Because they're devotees of Lord Krishna, so it's association with his devotees. So in past years, in, a very long time ago, I hadn't been to Vrindavan for 15 years, so it would have been 15 years earlier. I recall it used to be that a devotee resident there would take one to the various places of pilgrimage, and it included very many trees, very many trees. So one would look at all the trees and think, oh, it's a very great devotee. So in many cases, there's the dried up trunk of the previous tree and a new tree is present in that spot. But either way, if one has the proper understanding of who that extraordinary resident of Vrindavan is, it should actually arouse the presence of Krishna in one's own heart. So, now the trees themselves, they're showing ecstatic love for Krishna. And this is called, in Nectar of Devotion, it's called Anubhava. And we know it's this particular ecstatic love because there are various symptoms that reveal it. So one of those symptoms is being exclusively engaged in the service of the Lord. So this is all the trees are doing. We've heard from the narration. They're carrying their fruits and their flowers specifically to offer it to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and to Lord Balaram, as Lord Krishna was indicating. And the other symptom that lets one know that there's this ecstatic love, this anubhava present in the trees, is that they're faithfully carrying out the orders of the Lord because they're not functioning in an envious way. They're undisturbed, completely undisturbed, completely bowing down, and means that they're practicing loving transcendental service to the Lord, and they're making friendship with the devotees of the Lord. They're actually, because of their non-envious nature, just giving everything they've got to the Supreme Lord, indicates this faithful service that they have to Lord Krishna. So these are the symptoms that allow one to understand that there's this transcendental ecstatic love that's present there, and it's called Anubhava according to Nectar of Devotion. So Srila Vishwanath states too that the animals, birds, trees, vines, and all other living entities that reside in Vrindavan yearn to see the rising of Vrindavan's moon Krishna. So it's part of bhakti. There's always this yearning for Krishna. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying that actually every single living entity in Vrindavan has this yearning to see Krishna. And indeed, and these are his words, Vraja's forests, groves, creepers, trees, birds, beasts, and other living entities all blossom with happiness when Lord Mukunda glances on them, and they wilt with disappointment whenever he does not. So this is actually the state of the residents of Vrindavan. They're actually waiting for that glance of Lord Krishna. So they're residing in this atmosphere that's suffused with this love of Krishna, his aura as it was referred to by Srila Kavikarnapura. But at the same time, they're yearning for his glance upon them. And there's great disappointment should he not glance upon them. So this is explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And now, of course, we would want to have an explanation for why it is that the goal of one's life is this love for the Supreme Lord. I mean, it's a natural question that arises. So Srila Jiva Goswami, he gives a tremendous explanation. So this is how he puts it. The Supreme Personality of Godhead gives spiritual instruction for everyone's benefit because he can relieve everyone's unhappiness. Because as the sun is to its rays, because he is the Supreme Self of all the jivas, and because he possesses all super excellent qualities, he is supremely deserving of love. By this understanding, one can also ascertain the final goal, Parojana. So this is Srila Jiva Goswami in Tattva Sandarbha giving an explanation of why it is that just as all these residents of Vrindavan are looking for the merciful glance of the Supreme Lord upon them, and how they actually are completely faithfully devoted to serving him and Lord Balaram, why it is that oneself should actually see the Supreme Lord as, or love for the Supreme Lord as the goal of one's life, and wait for his mercy or his merciful glance upon one, has to do with coming to this understanding that he's actually supremely deserving of love. So now, if one looks in the world, one could say that actually all living persons naturally love themselves. There's no doubt about that. And if one goes further and becomes a little bit enlightened through hearing just these very simple narrations, then that kind of self-interest, or that natural love for oneself, it translates into some sort of impetus for spiritual development. And this is healthy and natural. It has to. And as one advances in one's understanding, and it rests a great deal on hearing about this perfect reality, one discovers that the Supreme Person deserves one's love the most. So this is a discovery one has to make for oneself. There's the underlying understanding, it's a factual thing, is that the Supreme Lord is the super soul of all selves. So he's the super self of all selves. So it means that the Jivatmas, the minute spirit souls, they're bodies of the Paramatma. So the Paramatma is that super self, and all the Jivas, they're actually part of that body of the Paramatma. And so he's the soul who possesses all the individual souls. And therefore, although the Jiva, the individual soul, is deserving of love, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is supremely deserving of love, just by virtue of the fact that he's the super self. So the implication is that the love of God is not something that is learned vicariously. So it's not that, one can imitate or vicariously get this love of Godhead by hearing of others possessing it. So even though I've spent a lot of time just describing the residents of Vrindavan, it's not that vicariously one's going to learn this love of Godhead, or it's not theoretically that one can learn about it, but rather, as an aspiring Vaishnava, one has to realize it for oneself. So one has to go through and deepen one's understanding and come to realize, oh, indeed, Krishna is that super self, and I'm part of the super self, and he's completely worshipable, and through the narrations, at least one's understanding, he's actually extremely deserving of love, one's love. So this is the final goal of life, and from another perspective, it's also the beginning of one's spiritual life. It's the goal, but it's also the beginning. You have to have that, at least that fundamental understanding in place, and then gradually you come to realize why it is that Lord Krishna is deserving of one's love. And only in that state of love for Krishna does the soul function naturally and experience complete fulfillment. So, in fact, one could say that, this description of all the residents of Vrindavan, one gets some sense of the complete fulfillment that they're experiencing But for oneself, it has to grow and develop, and each time one actually performs some service with the Supreme Lord, there is that sense of complete fulfillment, and one understands that it's the natural function of the soul. And then over time one gets a deeper understanding of why Krishna is deserving of one's love. So these are some of the thoughts on this extremely short one-line purport. So I expanded it thanks to our glorious acharyas who've written. So if there's any little thought on the matter, or some question that may have arisen from looking at this verse, it's open to discussion. All right, it was complete in itself. It's every topic related to Krishna leaves an impression on the heart. So even if the intelligence isn't, aroused to examine some specific point in relation to the philosophy, it still in order leaves a great impression on the heart. So thank you very, very much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.